the program for today. So this is for the audience. Please feel free to ask questions, to put up your questions in the question chat box, and to also raise up your hands. You'll be called in between the questions that I am going to be placing, or my discussion with Sunji. So please feel free to do that. And also, there's a survey in the chat section. Please feel free to take it so that we can know how we can give you support in whatever level of your career path that you're on. So BACN is offering to give support as you go through your career or doing a change of career into the BA world. You also stand a chance of winning 50% off the new classes that would start up in April. So once again, welcome Tunji.
Thank you, Praise.
Okay, so I want to start off by asking you to please tell us about your journey. I know that you've done a lot of things in the field of business analysis, but could you please walk us through your journey so far?
Okay, great question. Once again, I'm happy to be here. Glad to meet everyone. And of course, like Praise, just to talk about anything anyone here wants to talk about on the call. My journey. So right out of undergrad, I joined the firm in a finance role. It was called finance then, but now that I know better, I wasn't really doing finance. I know I was doing bookkeeping and accounting. So I was in that kind of role for like 2 years. And I know it's very exciting for some people, but that role wasn't for me because it wasn't really challenging. I was doing the same thing. It was very monotonous. I was doing the same thing every day. I needed something that would just stimulate me mentally. So I started looking for other opportunities. And that was the first time I heard about the business analysis role. And when I spoke to someone I knew who was in the role, I asked the person, what do you do every day? And they told me, oh, this is what my day looks like. And in a couple of months, I've changed projects. I've moved on to something else. It sounded really, really exciting to me. So I was really eager to join. And then I joined a company back in Nigeria, Venture Garden Group, as an entry-level business analyst. So I actually took a demotion and a pay cut just because I knew that I wanted to make that transition from something I didn't like to something I could potentially like. Day one was, as you would imagine, impossible because they threw me right in the middle of the fire. It's as if they thought I was already a seasoned business analyst. They just gave me work, bam, do it. And I just remember feeling quite overwhelmed, like what's happening. But when I talked to a couple of people in the firm, that's the culture of the firm, right? You learn by doing. So my journey into business analysis began from there. I stayed three and a half years in that particular firm, went to another company and did another 1.5 years in a similar role. So for me, I started to deviate from the technical side into more of the strategic and the analytical side of things. And then now I'm working in a bank as part of the strategy team as well. So what I do, my title might not be business analysis, but what I do on a day-to-day, the core of it is still business analysis.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So, with the world we find ourselves right now, we see that things are not the way they were like 5 years ago, even 3 years back. The world of work is not the same way it was 3 years back. Now there's this shift in the way we do things. Most roles are remote. We have new tools enabling us to do things. Do you think that same shift is happening within the BA roles? And what do you think that BAs can do, people that want to become BAs or people that are already BAs? How can they fit in into this new world as we find ourselves?
Absolutely. The changes are happening every day, everywhere, is affecting all roles. And more importantly for this conversation, it's also affecting the BA role. But before I jump into how BAs can change and adapt, I think I would like to define like what I think the new world of work is, right? And my definition of the world of work would be how we work, where we work and the skills and education required for what we are doing. So if you think about it from those three perspectives, you can tell by yourself and begin to imagine the changes that has been happening. So if you compare 2010 to 2020 to 2000 to 2010, take it in blocks of 10 years or even 5 years, you can see the noticeable differences. There, like you said, a lot of new tools have come up. I personally remember when Slack came up, I did not like the idea because it was just like another tool for me to use. I remember being a little
Yeah.
bit upset because it just seemed like it was a lot. So we're in an age where there's rapid development, rapidly developing tools. There's a new tool coming out today, new tool coming out tomorrow. And that's one perspective talking about the tools. Aside from the tools, your work, your scope of work itself is expanding. So in the early 90s, the business analyst wasn't really called the business analyst, it was called the system analyst. And it was really like IT people, engineers that really fit into that role. But gradually the role started to expand because it became necessary for the person in that role to understand the business side of things as well, right? So it began to evolve into business analysis. Now it's shifting again into being a trusted advisor, into being a more strategic thinker, right? Those are the changes that are happening. And uh, right now the workforce itself has changed. This is the first time ever where there are four generations in the place of work. The baby boomers are still at work, they've not phased out. Gen X are still at work, the millennials are still at work, and now Gen Z has joined the workforce as well. So that diversity is having an impact on all roles, and how it implies affect business analysis. I'm sure everyone here, or maybe the new people might not know, but a core part of business analysis is stakeholder management because you are talking, interacting with a lot of people. Now, if you have four different generations in the workforce, it means there are four different generations you need to be aware of, cognizant of when you're making decisions, when you're handling conversations. So I'll use that as a good segue into the things I need I want to talk about and how the BA role needs to evolve, how things you need to be aware of. So one, be aware of that diversity, that the differences in the people. A baby boomer will not understand things the same way a Gen Z person is going to understand it, and vice versa, right? So just being cognizant of those differences and adjusting it. Second thing I'll touch on is the tools. Don't be like me when it first came out. Try to embrace it. Now I have embraced it. I use Slack. So when it comes out now, I'm like, oh, great, another new one. I try to learn it. It won't stay permanently in your life. The thing is, at every point in time, you are only using one within a set. And when I mean a set, because there are multiple tools that do the same thing. So for example, you could have WebEx, Zoom, Google Hangouts, etc. You can only be using one in your organization. It's good to know how to use all, right? But it's not like, oh, your organization will use Zoom, WebEx, and Google Hangouts. They will choose one and stick with it. So that way, the organization is making it easier. So the onus lies on you to actually learn all of it so that if you shift from organization A that's using WebEx to organization B that's using Zoom, your learning curve won't be too steep. You already know the basics about Zoom and you'll be able to adjust a whole lot better. And the last thing I'll add in how BAs must evolve is in your thinking, the scope of your thinking. So the BA role is not just limited to systems analysis, thinking about requirements and all that. We have transitioned from where we are just talking about building things right to building the right things, right? So you must be able to think strategically and say, are we actually working on the right things, and give very good advice.
Oh, thank you so much for that. So I was going to ask you about the trajectory and the career path for a VA because a lot of people would, well, you've already touched on that, but I would like you to expatiate more because a lot of people may not know that, oh, there are different parts. You could see the umbrella could be, yes, we are BAs, but there are different things to do
Yeah.
as a BA. There are different roles, different parts, like being, you can be a strategy person, just
Mhm.
like you are. So there are different roles under that umbrella. So I would like you to talk about the trajectory of the career for someone that wants to be a BA.
Absolutely. I think that's a good question, and it does require me to expand on it a little bit. Um, so yeah, that's one mistake people make, especially when they're new into business analysis. They just think it's anybody that has the title business analyst that's actually a business analyst, but that's not the
Yeah.
truth. To understand the types of roles that fit under the umbrella, you need to backstep and understand what a business analyst does, right? And for me, the first two words that come to my mind when I think about business analysis is you're an interpreter, you're a bridge, right? Imagine a room where there are three people. One is speaking Yoruba, one speaks Igbo, one speaks Hausa. None of them speak English or any other language. They can be talking from now to the end of time. They will not understand each other. You as a business analyst, you are the person in the middle that listens to the person speaking Yoruba, translate it to Hausa, translate it to Igbo, and the other different combinations of that. So you are that bridge, you are that connection. So when you begin to expand that definition into different roles, right? So my definition would be a business analyst is anybody who sees the way things are right now, understands the way they are, and then can imagine what they will look like in the future, right? So you're taking a pause to, take a microscope, look at things now, and then begin to build it out into the future. That's a business analysis. That's a business analyst, sorry. And when you begin to expand that definition out, you see that a management consultant falls under that bucket, which is why in some management consulting firms, McKinsey, for example, you see the entry level role can be called business analyst, right? But then you begin to grow from that position into a consultant, into a senior consultant, and so on. Now, if you take a look at that business analyst role versus the traditional business analyst role that you think of where they're writing requirements, completely different. That's because they have nothing to do with systems. They are not writing requirements or anything, but
Or
they are doing business analysis, right? The difference is your technical business analysis on the bridge, on one side of the bridge, you have a developer and you have a business person. On the other, for the business analysts under the management consulting firms, on one side of the bridge, they have a business person and another business person. But the fact is, they are still a bridge. They are still connecting people, right? So don't focus on just the technicals, which is why some firms like to differentiate between business and systems analysts, right? So that it's more clear that, oh, the systems is technical, but everything falls under that umbrella. So your trajectory could be, anywhere from mine to someone who stays completely technical. So I happen to know a lot of people who did business analysis because I worked in a firm like that, right? So for me, as an example, business analysis, and then I started reducing the amount of technical things, the amount of tactical things I was doing, and I was increasing the strategic things and went full blown into strategy. There are other people who went into product management, right? So if you think about that role as well, you're still an in-between, you're still a bridge, you're still a stakeholder manager. That's one part. There are people who go into project management because there is a difference between the two. And there are people who stay and double down on that systems requirement bit where it's requirements, translating developers, language and French, Arabic into what business people will understand, because
yeah,
you can't put those two people in the room, they just will not connect, right?
yeah,
So
at
there
all.
still has to be that person who makes sense of what the two sides are saying.
Okay, thank you so much. So that means we have to keep an open mind, be broad about our
Absolutely.
thinking when we are talking about, or when we are thinking about going into this career or choosing this career. as a path that we want to go to. And if we are already there, then we get to see that there's much more, it's more broader than what we think or what we fit it into. So we need to think outside the box. I would
Exactly.
also like to talk about at this point, yes, we are in this new world phase where Corona has made everything remote. And it's not like we used to know it. What challenges people face, people that are business analysts or just in the world of work generally, what challenges would be faced by anyone that wants to become a business analyst or is already a business analyst? What challenges are they going to face with this new normal that we have?
That we are in. Uh, I just remember like a meme I saw when the whole pandemic started, that what accelerated your company's shift to digital, and Corona was one of the answers that people were
Yes,
giving.
I
So
think I
it's
remember.
because, yeah, like it's because of that many people, many companies started doing their, oh, okay, we must be able to work remotely because they were forced to. Ideally, we were going there, the world was going there, but we were very slow because there was no catalyst, right? So you see some companies say, oh, okay, if you don't have any meetings, you can work from home, right? If if it's not a stakeholder meeting, if it's just your team meeting, you can work from home. They were given those little bits of flexibility. But now that Corona has hit, where even stakeholder meeting, even if you are meeting with another CEO, you have to do it remotely. It's the evolution just jumped, just skyrocketed. So we all had to think and adjust pretty quickly. Talking about the challenges, I mean, this is a very important conversation. The very first one I'm going to highlight is um, collaboration, remote collaboration, and facilitation skills. Now, let me paint you a picture. We've all been in meetings, whether you are new to the workforce or school, whatever. Even if it's your family meeting, there's always that one person in every meeting that has the loud voice. Now, as long as
Sure.
they're there, we will know what they think. Their opinions will always be heard. Right? Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not saying their opinions are right, but they are loud. But in that meeting, there's always that one or two people also who don't really speak. They don't force their way to speak because they are quiet. They are waiting for that just drag in the conversation when things just quiet down to jump in because that is their personality, right? But sometimes that quiet really happens when that loud person is there because that loud person will keep dominating the conversation. Now, remember, you as a business analyst, your role is to be a bridge, to bridge that gap. So, how are you bridging the gap in the facilitation session? Your role is to get out insights from everybody in the room. That quiet person doesn't mean they don't know what to say or they don't have something smart to say. At the end of the day, it might be that quiet person that gives the most fantastic idea. It may not be as well, right? But your duty as a facilitator is to get at everyone, give everyone an opportunity to speak. It's a little bit easier to do in person because you start to look around the room, you start to see people, and oh, this person hasn't, like that visual effect just keeps reminding you that this person hasn't spoken. And depending on the personality, the person might be trying to raise their hands a little, or you just see that they are trying to talk. Those visual cues are there. But when you take it to a remote situation, one, not everyone will put on their cameras like we have in this meeting right now. So if David, for example, wants to say something, there's no visual cue for me to know that he wants to say something, right? And it just becomes so much difficult. That's one huge challenge. How do you manage? How do you balance that? How do you get that person to speak? How do you begin to say, okay, this loud person has really spoken enough? Like, we need to quiet down. So that's one huge challenge. The second thing is the other challenge is being empathetic. Like, you just have to understand that people are in different phases of life. There are different things going on. You're in a meeting with someone who's married and has 3 kids. It's very different from someone who is single and living alone. The person can most likely join a meeting at any time, whereas the person with 3 kids cannot. person with 3 kids may be distracted because one kid at the moment has, an issue, right? So being empathetic, being, understanding of people's different circumstances. So it brings in scheduling challenges, for example, right? So how do you pull people into meetings? Do you get them to bring their all in all? Right. And like I said, brainstorming is just 100 times harder when it's done remotely. And then the last thing I'm going to touch on is so it's still around brainstorming and facilitation. So there's the people side of it, now is the tool and technology side of it. Remember, if you're in person, for example, if you are doing brainstorming sessions, you want people to jot down ideas, you just pass around sticky notes and say, write down your ideas. Then, we'll put it on the board, then everyone can use dots to vote, stuff like that. How do you do that remotely, right? So, which means you have to adjust the way you work. You have to go and research new technology and see, okay, is there a tool that can help me do this thing? Because imagine doing it without a tool. Okay, you can't pause and say, oh, everybody say your ideas. The reason why you have them take 15 minutes and write it down is if 5 people are doing the same thing at the same time, it goes faster than one person doing it, at a time, right? So you can generate a whole lot more ideas and vote on it quickly. So how do you adjust to something like that? Those are the major challenges that I have seen and I have personally faced during this remote working times.
Okay, and you've been able to surmount them how? Because now they're the challenges, then how do we surmount them? How do we bring them all together and make the best out of the situation, out of the scheduling conflicts, the psychological challenges that comes along the line?
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing you have to do is be a human being, right? That's one common thing they say in my office, like just be a human being, right? Like it's not machines that are coming to work. You should understand, like you might have your own things as well. So for example, I needed to book a meeting with someone yesterday and I noticed she always blocks off that time. So I had to reach out to her personally and say, hey, every other person coming to this meeting, this is the only time that works. I noticed you've blocked it off, but please, can you make an exception for this day? And she would say, oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for asking. Asking is a big part of it. Just just recognizing that, yeah, that time might be important to the person. So take that extra 2 minutes, that extra 3 minutes to to have a conversation. If that's one of the things I would say has made me very successful when I was managing stakeholders is I like to have conversations with people. I like to be very empathetic. I like to talk to people and understand the reasons behind their actions or emotions. And that way, you can even ask your stakeholders to do things they will not do for another person, right? So it just makes things easier if you're a human being. Understand the person. Oh, this person has kids, it might not work. This person is pregnant, it might not work. It might not even be something that serious. This single person always takes this 30 minutes in their day to exercise. That is also very important to them. Don't berate anybody's circumstance or anything. This person might be going to church or going to the mosque at this particular time. You need to respect it, right? Ask them if they can make a sacrifice or not. Those are the ways you start to bridge that gap. In terms of tools, remember, a tool is only there to aid your process. So the first thing you have to focus on is what do you want to achieve? What's that process? What's the value you want to generate? It makes it easier for you to not think of ways or tools that might help you to do that particular thing, right? So when you use that perspective and you say, okay, what I want is I want people to be able to brainstorm on ideas and we can vote on it. So it's not the sticky notes that matters, it's the process that really matters. Then you start to look for tools, start to ask people. That will help you bridge that gap as well. Then in terms of getting people to speak. So maybe the scenario I painted where there's a loud person in the meeting and then there's a quiet person in the meeting is acknowledging it upfront, especially if you are in charge of that meeting, making sure that you are stating that, oh, you will be facilitating the conversation, and you might be calling on people to speak, that they should not feel like they're on the spot. If they don't, they can pass if they want to. Jump in when someone loud is talking, like feel free to jump in and say, okay, yeah, that's a fantastic point, but we would like to move on from this conversation. Take notes. Like, always, one thing I always do is I always have my participant list open. That way I'm able to see everyone on the call, and then I'm looking, okay, I've not heard from this person, I've not heard from that person. And of course, I can now call on people I've not heard from. And then, of course, encourage them to use the tool. So, for example, on Zoom, there's a feature to raise up your hands. Encourage people to use that and stick with it. Look out for those things. If someone raises up their hand, acknowledge it by calling on them to speak. That will make other people want to do the same thing. Even if someone wants to jump in, you pause that person and say, sorry, excuse me, like, can you hold on? I think this person really has something to say, and their hand has been up for quite a while. It makes sure everyone follows that process, and then you're able to have a better hold on the meeting.
I want us to backtrack for a bit.
Praise, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear you. You're
Yes,
breaking.
I'm trying to. What's
Okay,
going on?
no worries, take your time. And of course, in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, feel free to jump in or just drop it in the chat section.
Yes, please feel free to do that, to drop it in chat section or raise up your hand and you will get called. So what I was saying when you couldn't hear me was I wanted us to backtrack a bit. Now we spoke about strategy and we spoke about product and project management. But would you say data? Would you say finance and other job opportunities, are they still under the sphere of a business analyst? Data, finance, health tech, things like that.
So I won't be so conceited as to say maybe they are under, right? That's not like the real goal, to try and say, oh, everything is under business analysis. What I would say is that is a valuable and achievable pathway as well. I actually forgot to call those out. And it's one of the changes that's happening as well, because we're rapidly evolving technology means there's more data that's being collected, which also means the business analysis technically is also analyzing more data. So you need to now learn those tools to do that. But that's a different conversation, and I don't want to digress. So yes, those financial analysis, data analysis are pathways. So when I was a business analyst, I did all of that. I was doing finance, I was doing data, I was doing like systems, and I was doing like the core business, I was doing strategy, all of it, which is why I loved my role. Think about it as, I'm very biased in that sense that when people are fresh out of undergrad, I try to encourage them into the business analysis role, because it's a general role that exposes you to the different parts of the world. Now, when I finished from school, I really wanted to go for my master's immediately. I thought I wanted to do research methods and advance one long course like this in University of Manchester. I had the admission, I was ready to go. But as you know, fate will have it, I got my job offer same day. So I just said, let me go and work first. Then when I now worked, and I saw that that research thing is not, it's not for me. I began to understand myself, and what I like to do, and it was able to inform my decision to actually do a master's program that was in line with what I wanted. That's what I think a business analyst role offers. Because if you're able to do a little bit of finance, do a little bit of systems, a little bit of data, and my firm actually does a little bit of legal. I did not like that one, but yeah, if you're able to do a little bit of everything, you are able to recognize, what you want to do and able to chart your path and say, you know what, I want to focus on this data analyst part, or I want to focus on this finance analyst part, or whatever it may be. So I think it gives you options. It just opens your eyes to so many, many things. And that way, when you're talking, you are able to relate to different kinds of people. So I can enter a meeting and a finance person can bamboozle me. Yes, I'm not in finance. I don't particularly like it, but I understand it, right? Data, that was my core. So you can't even bamboozle me in data. If I come in marketing, whatever, I understand it, right? So that's why I like the role. I just believe it gives you a ton of options that you should be free to explore.
Okay, so the role is versatile, and there are a lot of
Versatile.
things that, yeah, the versatility of the role is quite large, and there are a lot of things that we can do apart from just the dynamic ones that we know, the ones that are at the top now. So I want to ask at this point, do you think that this shift has come to stay, this paradigm shift, do you think it has come to stay?
Absolutely. Short answer, yes. It is here, it is here to stay. Because if you track all the changes over history, very few of them have gone away, if any, to be the minor ones, right? Remember, like the first transitions were from manufacturing to servicing, where okay, because initially every economy was run by the manufacturing industry. Oh, hey, and then the world changed and there was a shift to servicing. We haven't gone back to manufacturing. Don't get me wrong, it's not that they are manufacturing companies, it's just that there are more servicing companies. Other changes that you can track is in the 2000s that technology began to come up. Even though there was the dot-com bubble and a bust, the technologies remain behind for us to start to use in our daily work. Actually, they are coming up more and more. Tomorrow there's a new tool that you have to use, so on and so forth. So I could go on listing them, but that's not the focus of our conversation. Yes, these changes are here to stay. It might not be exactly how you see it now. So, for example, taking remote working, depending on wherever in the world you are right now, and your company and the rules and everything, you can be 100% at home. I have personally been 100% working at home for more than a year now, since March 11, right? So I only leave my house to take a walk or to go for an emergency service. I have not seen my office. I have things at the office that I can't even go and pick up, right? So it's 100% working at home. And because I'm a consultant, my project changes from time to time, which means I've worked on projects with people that I've not met physically. I've only seen them on video. And there are some of them that never turn on their video. So I just know their voice. I don't even know what they look like. So that's the current situation. It doesn't mean that that's what it will look like when the pandemic is over, right? But elements of it will remain because I foresee a hybrid situation. It's not going to be 100% remote, but it's not going back to 100% in office. It's going to be hybrid. What that hybrid will look like will differ from company to company. So hybrid might be in your office, half of the people can come into work this week, half can come in next week, right? Hybrid might be only coming if you have meetings with external stakeholders, right? That's a different kind of hybrid. So I can't tell you exactly what it will look like. What I can tell you that yes, remote working is here to stay. And the second thing is it won't look exactly like this where it's 100%. And then the other changes, the other evolutions as well. So for like AI, robotics and all that, they are here to stay, right? And it's still in its infancy as well. So I can't really say what it will look like, but you can begin to predict and say a lot of just the same way that manufacturing to services made manufacturing roles drop. There were less jobs, and the introduction of technology made I'm looking for the word that we usually use, low value task, make it like really go down. It's the same way that when AI comes in, a lot of those roles that AI is affecting will go down. But I personally believe that AI will create more jobs than you will lose, right? So it's about being able to predict that change and going with it. So back to my short answer, yes, and I'm giving you the reasons why I think they are here to stay.
Okay, thank you for that. I know that you already said you were partial to the role of a BA, that you always preach it to whoever you meet that just graduated. So, what would you usually say to newbies, to undergrad or recent graduates that, okay, find themselves that, oh, yes, I didn't study anything related to business, but I do not have a background in business, but I want to go into this role. What should they do? How should they go about it?
So the first thing I'll say is don't let that stop you, because there's also someone who studied everything about business and is going into that role. But don't forget that there's systems analysis in that role. There's data analysis in that role. So that person, that will also be very alien to the person. So you have an expertise. Um, it's like the MBA. When I did the MBA, like everybody came from different walks of life. So everybody was an expert at different subjects. When it came to finance, it was like they were speaking French in class. I always had headache. I was struggling to keep up because it was in depth, right? And you see the people showing themselves because they came from a finance background. But when it now came to data analysis, I was now the one showing myself, and then people were quiet. It's the same thing with the business analyst role, right? You might be coming from an IT background where when it comes to systems analysis, you kill it. When it comes to business analysis, you have some room to grow, right? So don't let that stop you. Then second thing is, which will actually be my first advice, is be a sponge. Your role as a beginner, as an entry-level analyst, is to be a sponge. Uh, Like think about a sponge. What a sponge does is it just soaks. It soaks information, it soaks knowledge, it soaks skills. So
Yeah.
because the role is so diverse, you have to keep learning, learn from everybody, learn from every situation. There's learning in failure, there's learning in success. Don't just say, hey, I succeeded, on to the next thing. Why did you succeed? What could I have done better? If you failed, why did I fail? What could I have done better? Right? So learn from everything, learn about data, learn about everything. Until you learn it, that's when you will actually know if you like it or not. If you don't learn it, you won't know. You just be looking at it from afar, right? Remember, I said finance for me was like they're speaking Arabic, but now I get it, right? I understand it. I can actually, the engagement I just rolled off, it's been for 10 months and it's been finance. So I've been looking at Excel for the last 10 months, like tick, tick, Excel
I
file
can just
for the last
imagine.
10 months, right? And I'm not having headache, right? So it's until you actually learn before you know if you like it or not. So just soak it up, soak it up, soak it up. And the second thing I would say is learn the history of work, learn the history of the BA role to be able to, one, understand where we've come from, and two, understand where we are going to. Earlier in the conversation, I said in the early 90s, it was system analyst, then it became business analyst, now is moving to trusted advisor, into a strategic thinker. Know that transition, know all of that. A concrete example would be, we all know that the new methodology everyone is using now is agile methodology. I will not
Yeah.
advise you to learn just agile. I will advise you to learn waterfall because, as
Wonderful.
well, right? Because you need to understand the differences between the two. You need to understand, why were we using waterfall in the first place? Why did we have to change it? And then maybe you actually see that there are some situations where this waterfall will actually be a better approach, or where it makes sense, right? That way you are able to just have that knowledge in your skill set and just be able to leverage it where necessary. And like I said, the second part is to be able to predict where things are going. The whole part of data and doing predictive analysis is, the more data you have, the better you're able to predict where things are going to. So if you're able to understand where the role is coming from, how it has evolved, you are able to better predict where it is going to, and you're able to prepare yourself for the future as well.
Okay, so we have to know the history and also repetitively do things so that we become better at them, at understanding them.
Absolutely.
At this point, I would like to ask our audience if they have any questions, if they would like to give any input or insight, just to air their views. So does anyone on the call have any questions or insights that they would like to put up? Please raise up your hand and I'll call you and get you muted. Or drop your question in the chat box. I will read it out. Okay, Jude's hand is up. Please, Jude, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Thanks everyone for this session. It's been a great session. I'm currently kind of a business analyst, and I want to know some certain things. I've been doing analysis for long, but call business analysis for like 4 years now in the telecom sector. Now, in business analysis, is it usually the business analyst that initiates this analysis, or the stakeholder or the management that would usually request that, oh, this business we want to go into, hey, analyst, help us analyze this business, let us know the in and out of this business, or the business analyst on his own without anybody asking him or her to go ahead with this thing, we just wake up one morning and start doing analysis? That's my question.
Okay, thank you, Jude.
Yeah, thank you, Jude, for that question. I really love the question because it takes me back. Short answer again is yes, it is usually management that initiates it, right? That is where we are coming from, by the way. So we're coming from a state of work where it's, oh, we want to do this, hey, so we need to do this analysis, hey, Jude, can you do this, so on and so forth. But back in the day when I was on a team, like 20 plus business analysts, this was what was happening, but the team started to think as a whole that we should be the drivers of change, right? So yes, work is coming down, but we should also be able to drive work itself. So the team now started to analyze some situations on their own, do analysis and say, hey, this is what I think, this is what we should do. And then gradually it started to shift in that company, at least, right? From 100% management driven to 90-10, 80-20, 70-30, and then 50-50, right? And for me, that is the future of work. When I say there's a shift from systems to business to trusted advisor to strategic, a trusted advisor is someone who initiates that process. A strategic thinker is someone who initiates that process and says, hi, this is what I see coming. This is what we should be thinking about. Let's do this analysis. Let's do that. Of course, this also comes with your level of experience. An entry-level analyst may not be in the best position to start doing that. Your role at this particular point in time will just be to receive the directives and then do the analysis, right? But as you advance in your career, you start to be that driver of change and say, hey, we should do this, we should do that, right? So being management driven is still very prevalent, but the trend is, it might be slow, but the trend is gradually it's starting to come from the business analyst as well.
Thank you, Tunji, for that. Does any other person have a question? Like I said, please raise your hand or drop your question in the chat box and I'll read it out. Any other question before we move forward? Okay, not seeing anybody. Like I said, drop it in the chat or raise your hand and I will call you. So at this point, I would like to ask you to what you would say or what advice you would give to those already in the field. Okay, sorry, before you answer my question, someone has raised their hands. Please unmute yourself, Timitayo.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Thank you for the knowledge shared. I like the fact that you mentioned that as a DA, be response, like just soaking all the knowledge that you can, and then you get to know whether you are interested in this or not. I just wanted to touch on the aspect of expectation. Now, I'm not talking of particular expectation. I'm talking of expectation as a BA. Like, how did you do it, especially when you were starting out? How did you do it, looking up with expectation? You have a task, and you're not sure, you're maybe not so certain that you'll be able to meet up with this expectation. I just want to know how you dealt with that, to the point that you became confident in what you could do. I don't know if you answered the question.
Yeah, I'll reiterate the question. You want to understand how I dealt with meeting up to expectations, and and how I built that confidence over time. Is that correct?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. So number one thing in not being able to meet expectations is not understanding the ask. So that was always the most important thing. Like I said, the first day, my first day in the role, they threw me into the deep end and just said, do this. I was just looking like, so no training, no nothing. Okay, thank you. Right. So, but what you need to do is clarify the ask, and there are different ways, different techniques to do that. So when it comes to, so for example, a very simple example would be if they want you to build a presentation, for example, say, oh, we want a presentation on XYZ. What you do is no, I'm not going to use technical terms. You just write a story. Write a story of what you think that presentation will look like. That, hey, I'm going to introduce this subject, introduction to how the new world of work is affecting business analysis. Then I'm going to describe the new world of work. Then I'm going to say the advantages of the new world of work. Then I'm going to describe what a business. Just do that. You can do that in an hour, and then you take it back and say, hey, is this what you want me to do? Is this what the expectation is, right? If you clarify that, the person immediately can say, yes, this is what I want. Can even start, having some comment additions, add this, no, remove that, that's not necessary. You know you're on the right track. At the end of the day, if you build a deck based on that, you know you've done this right thing because you already showed the templates, the skeleton to the person ahead of time, right? So, but if you don't do that, and maybe the person just wanted copy and paste research on, what is the world of work, but you did this fantastic thing end to end, spent your time, and he said, yeah, great work, but this is only what I wanted. Or in fact, you did something completely different, right? That's the number one thing, clarifying the ask and showing it's like the whole working agile thing, where you release something that can be used and start to build on it, right? So in this sense too, you have to just, take something very early on, little jots to make sure that you're on the right path. And then for yourself,
Bless you.
have manageable expectations. Like, don't expect to be like Jude, who has 4 years experience in 1 week. Jude will know things you do not know. He will know techniques you do not know. Even when it comes down to people management, you can go and talk to, if you personally go and meet Praise and say, hey, Praise, what do you think about this? Praise might respond to you in a way that you think you got the answer, or you think she doesn't have your time. But Jude can be able to tell you that, oh, how did she answer? She answered like this. Okay, she probably was thinking of something else, or this is what she meant. Experience grows over time, your knowledge grows over time, right? So that's why at the early on stage, like my company, we always say within the first 6 months, no question is stupid. Just be asking questions as you like, right? Ask what's the meaning of your company's name, it's not stupid. within that 6 months. So that's your job early on. That's the expectation. The asking. And the amazing part is one of the core skills, core strengths of a business analyst is the ability to ask questions, ask good questions, right? So start working on it. Just start learning, start soaking. Don't expect to be an expert like overnight. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Okay.
So the ask is important, and we won't stop asking questions till we get clarification. So Tunji, in the chat box, someone asked, Joseph asked that what is the competency trajectory you would advise to transition from a BA to a trusted advisor? And also he asked that what is the certification and courses that you would recommend?
Yeah, I'll start from the second one and I'll tell you, don't be like me. I have 0 certifications. So actually I have one, but I don't care about it. I don't use it. It was done by, it's ISO 27001. It was just so that the company could get certified and all that. Doesn't affect me in any way. But I personally have not chased certifications because the knowledge is more important to me. Not that I've not done courses, right? So if you go to my EDX, you see lots of courses, lots of completion. I prioritize the knowledge over having certification. But the thing is, I could afford to do that, one, because I was already in role and I built in network. And business analysis is not like dev or IT where you need those certifications, right? So I'm saying, that's why I said, don't be like me. If you want to have those certifications, do them. Unfortunately, I can't advise on which to do because I've never been a big guy on set. I just acquire knowledge as much as I can. So to the first part of the question, the trajectory to becoming a trusted advisor is understand business, right? So the whole goal of them building a system, or that you're building your system requirements and all that, is to achieve a business goal. It's never to say that, yes, my company has this system. It's to generate revenue and to generate profits or to gain strategic advantage in the market. Everything boils down to it. Your marketing, your finance, your systems, whatever, that's what is about profits. So understand how business works. When you understand how businesses work, you're able to give good advice. You're able to know the competition, right? Know like what's happening in the industry, what's happening in other industries that could be copied into this industry. So for example, I was having a conversation with someone in the bank that in telcos, I think in Australia and probably Canada here as well, they are starting to collocate resources. So they are using like the same cloud services, the same telco lines and everything, right? So we're using the same infrastructure, but we just sell it as different things. So I was talking to someone and saying, why can't we do that in the bank, right? Have the same cloud storage facility. It's cheaper. It brings down my cost and my profit is starting to go up. So this is not about doing the system requirements to get it done. It's understanding that you know how the business works and you want the best for the company. So that's the best way to become a trusted advisor. Start to learn business and start to learn frameworks. For me personally, I took an interest into management consulting ever before I became one because I like the way they think, right? So if you start to do case practice, case practice is simply, it's a way to test people before they join management consulting. And it could be, this company has been experiencing declining profits for the past 10 years. How can you resolve it? That's the question. So vague, so ambiguous, so, there's no information whatsoever. And you're supposed to give a concrete answer, right? So I took an interest into that people actually end up answering that questions. How do they do it? Oh, they start to ask questions and say, okay, declining profits over the past 10 years. What's the revenue? What has been the revenue over 10 years? What has been the cost? Because they are trying to see declining profits could be that revenue is reducing or cost is increasing. You don't know which one. So you have to break it out into its component parts and look at it. If it's revenue, okay, how many products do they have? Is it product A that's reducing or product B that's reducing? If you find out it's product A, what's happening? Is it the price that dropped, or is it the number of quantity that's being sold that dropped? You see how you are going one level deeper, 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 and deeper. That was my personal approach. I just love the way they think. And it helped me on the job. So I was able to ask deeper questions when I was meeting with stakeholders. When they say, hey, we want a system that can do this, why? Like getting to the why. Because what stakeholders say they want is never really what they want. It's only very few people that know what they want, right? It's like what Henry Ford said, that if you ask people what they want, they would have said faster horses. They wouldn't have said a car. Right. So being able to understand the need and the wants, that's how you develop, and getting that breadth of knowledge from different perspectives helps you become a trusted advisor. And speaking up, that's the last part. Speaking up, there's you can have all the knowledge in your head to advise, but if you don't actually say it and say, hey, this is what I think we should do, you are not being a trusted advisor.
Thank you so much for that answer. Sorry, I have planes flying overhead close to my house, so you may not be able to hear me sometimes. Um, David, I think that's David. David's hand has been up for a while. David and Godfrey. So we'll take David first, then go to Godfrey. David, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, actually, hi everyone. Yeah. Hi, I just wanted to add a bit. I didn't have that discussion about the topic, but I wanted to what you changing around certification and how to transition from role in business and can you hear me?
Okay.
Is it better? Sorry, where I am is a bit noisy, so apologies for the background noise. So I was saying I wanted to add to what Tunji has said around certification and growing in business analyst, in the role as a business analyst, and transitioning into that advisory role. And the piece of context, Tunji is my organ, was my boss before. We go way back, so I kind of understand, and I probably learned from a lot of my senior colleagues in this role, and I realized that when you are in the role, you see yourself prioritizing learning on the job, especially in certain companies. You see yourself prioritizing learning on the job as against chasing certification. Not that you don't do courses, not that you don't read your books, not that you don't look for knowledge, but you just realize that the certificate is less of what is important to you and more of knowing the information and being able to handle problems as they come up is what you would prioritize. And I think that has been that probably in my career so far, that's probably one of the most asked questions for me. From guys who are coming into the field, or not even in just business, generally in the workspace, whenever I'm speaking in an event and about professional development, it always comes up what courses do you looking at taking, what courses do you take while growing in your career. And I just realized that I'm not sure if it's a cultural thing here in Nigeria, because there's a lot of emphasis on education and certification, or if it is actually a trend in the space of work that businesses prioritize people with certification. It has not been my own experience that businesses prioritize people with certification. That has not been my experience. But I would love to know, and maybe in the course of this conversation, maybe in future conversation, we probably need to explore this a little deeper, why that question keeps coming up, so that we can understand how to help and guide them. Because it really is important to understand the frame of mind that we do this. I've had asked of me at least 5 times to do a video, and I think the size are like practical about it. Because it's not about you to go to get certificates, but if you are getting certificates for the sake of getting certificates, there is a fundamental flaw in that. And I really want to understand why that comes up a lot around certification. development because I have not experienced a situation where it is hard in any way, and I want to know what it is. What is the driver for it? I think maybe you may be able to add some context or thoughts here from your own experience, because I've had that question for this very long time, and begin to think that if there's something that we need to explore in better or help guide people how to address or navigate this aspect of
Yeah, to be honest, that this situation is also a bit of an enigma for me as well, because I get the question a lot now, and I understand that there are paths, there are industries where certification is the life. So, for example, my brother and I are completely different. I have 0 certifications. He probably has like 20, right? But that's because he's a network engineer. He's doing core IT, and that's a stamp, is a proof that he can actually get the job done, right? Now, but one thing I need to emphasize is so many people have forgotten the reasons behind a certification. A certification is supposed to be a proof that you can do the work, that you have the knowledge, right? And so he does the certifications, but he prioritizes the knowledge. He learns, he asks questions on the job, he like does a lot of things, but just so that it will make his application life easier, he will do the certifications and just dump it somewhere, right? And then at the end of the day, he doesn't apply with some of them so that it doesn't seem overqualified. He'll just use the ones as necessary, because the knowledge that he was really chasing. So that's why I would say, like, if he said the knowledge is 100 times more important than the certificate itself. Now, to her question on why there seems to be like a disconnect, that people tend to want to focus on getting certifications. I have seen companies that do ask, so for example, business analysis, you need the IIBA certification, for example, to to be on the job. That's fine, right? So maybe if you are going for that particular company and you really want it, do the certification. Like, I have no qualms against certification. I'm just talking from my perspective, my path. I've been able to do it without certifications. And if you are not one who likes certification, don't be forced to do it because you think everybody requires one, right? And the way job postings have been evolving is, because I've been seeing it, is must have, they list the responsibilities. Nice to have, they put the certification, right? So it shows that the priority is being able to do the work. It will be nice. You'll probably have an advantage if you have a certification. But someone else without the certification could also outshine you in the interviews just because they are more confident in their experiences. They were just, interviews are, it could go one way or the other. Because you didn't get the job doesn't mean you're no good, right? You could be absolutely brilliant. So I mean, do what's best for you. Now, let's come down to it, because everything I've said has been in favor of those who will be like me, who probably don't like certifications. Let me be unbiased and try to speak to those who would want to do certifications or who are chasing companies that require certifications. This is solely my advice, like things I think you should check out. The IIBA, that would be a good one. It will certify you that you're certified CPAP and all right, certified business analyst and all that. I'll say some specific IT tools. So if there's one around data analysis, it would be good to have. If there's one around SQL, it'll be great to have that as well, because I've noticed that on this side of the world, if you don't, you have to do SQL to actually be business analyst is a core requirement and all that. So having a certification in that would be nice. Having a certification in a visualization tool, Tableau, Power BI, whatsoever, letting those tools will be good, right? So I'll say just a couple, but at the same time, don't over-engineer. You don't need 10. You don't need 20. that's not the kind of role you're going for. Remember, at the end of the day, this is a foundational role. You can do certification, and then at the end of the day, you go into finance. So the IT certifications you've done, knowledge is not wasted, right? But the certification itself is no longer necessary because you've fallen in love with finance. And maybe now in finance, you now need to do CPA, do ACCA, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think that would be my best attempt at being unbiased.
Okay, thank you so much, Tunji. So, different strokes for different folks. If you are someone that loves to acquire knowledge more, go for the certificate. If you are more practically inclined, then learn on the job and grow.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a minute. Dikobia had yeah, someone's hands was raised before. I'm trying to. Godfrey, I don't know if you still want to ask your question. Oh, I think Godfrey has left. I think Godfrey has left. Godfrey had a question. His hands was raised earlier, but I think he has left now. Anyway, that's by the side. I would like to remind us that the link for the survey is in the chat. Please let's take time out to fill that survey so that BACN, which is the Business Analyst Community of Nigeria, can find a way to help you if in the process where you need help and at every level of your career. And for those that want to acquire certifications also, you can also reach out to BACN. They are the host for this particular episode of the Fireside Show, and they would help put you through in acquiring your certifications and how to go through it. So my final question before we wrap this up, I asked before you started answering people's questions. My question was, what advice would you give to people that are already within the field, people that already have experience, have spent years in the field? Now we are in this new world and everything seems different. Some people do not go with change. Some people like what they know to be what they know. So now, but there's change, and this change is forceful. You cannot escape it. What should people that have years of experience within the BA field do at this point in time? So I'd like you to give your advice and yeah.
I'll build off your comments that some people don't like change. The very first advice is embrace the change. Change is happening everywhere, right? So if you think about it business wise, Blockbuster refused to change when movies were moving off the shelves to online, and that's why they died, right? So if
Yeah.
you think about it now, if there's any car company that's not thinking about electric cars, in 5 to 10 years, they will be dead. So if you
True.
don't want to die, you have to embrace the change, right? Just accept it. It's part of the world. It's not just the business analyst role. Every role is being, changed, being revolutionized. So it's just be flexible, accept change. I mean, think about it this way. If things are changing, it means there's an opportunity to learn more. You have to have a passion for learning, for knowledge, right? And if there's a change, it means it's a trigger for you to say, okay, there's something new to learn. Yeah, be happy about it, right? Now, there are some specific tiny things that might not be giving you more knowledge. So, for example, they're using Slack to replace another messaging tool. It's just one after the other. That's not giving you more knowledge, right? But you know what? Just deal with it. Take it in stride because, that's where we're going. Second thing I would say is now start to lead that change because now you are more experienced. You understand I mean, if you've been in business analysis 5 years, you probably did waterfall, right? Because it was still quite prevalent then, if I remember correctly. If you've done agile, you've done working in a collocated team, you've done working all across the world. So you've seen the differences. You are in a position to start to advise, being that trusted advisor and say, this is what I think business analysis should look like in the future. start to contribute to the community, start to talk to young BA people on what they should be focusing on and all that. So be that change. And then the last thing I think I'd mention is never ever forget to focus on the value, on the purpose, and not the tool, because there's a tendency. There's a tendency for more matured people in the role to say, I want to use balsamic by force by fire to build a wireframe, or I want to use Jira or teamwork. When
Yeah.
there's Trello, that's easier to do. Don't forget that the goal was never to check the box, oh, we use Jira. The goal was to get organized. The goal was to be able to know who's
Yeah.
doing it. So always focus on the purpose and the value of what you're doing, and not necessarily the tool.
Thank you so much for that one. It really resounds with me, and I'm sure a lot of people would also agree with that, that you focus on the value and not the tool. The output and not where it's coming from is what we need. So on that note, I want to say thank you so much, Tunji, for gracing us with your presence and knowledge today. And before you leave, are there any final words you would like to share with us?
I don't know. Like, I mean, so for those who are new, I'm happy for you. Like, I didn't get this introduction or this kind of community where I started out. So great job. You're on the right path. Learn as much. And if it's not for you, don't be afraid to change. Like I said, I started out in finance 2 years. But in those 2 years, I knew I hated it, right? So I made a transition. For those who are more tenured, like, begin to see what the future might look like to you. For every revolution, there's an opportunity, right? So for example, we're talking about the new world of work. There's AI, there's robotics. It's changing. People are going to lose jobs, right? But people are also going to get jobs. It's people that are going to build these AIs. It's people that are going to maintain these AIs, right? So AI, for example, is affecting the movie industry. Netflix leverages AI to know what you would want to watch and all that. But it's still people that have to act the movies. It's still people that have to write the script. So in a way, yes, it reduced one part of the job, but it increased a whole lot of it. So don't let that scare you. Look for the opportunities. Just using that as an example, there are shortage of AI experts. Do you want to be that business analyst who already has the AI expertise, so that in the next 2-3 years, when it's mainstream, you are already ready, you are on it, you are already becoming a star, right? Start to see them, start to recognize it, and jump on those opportunities. And then, yeah, I mean, feel free to connect, feel free to talk to people. Like, the best way to learn is to ask other people who have been there, right? And to read books. So that will be my final story for the day.
Okay, so opportunity needs preparation. So just be prepared, and once you're prepared and you keep preparing, one day the right doors would open.
Exactly.
Before you leave, I would like we all on the call to please put on our videos so that we can take a group photo for posterity's sake. Please, everyone on the call, please can you put on your videos so that we can take a photo, or basically screenshots. Hello. Uh, please put on your videos. Casey, please could you help people out so that we can have access to their videos? Okay, we still have some.
If you need to do that, please, you could just go to start video and then you can unplug it from there. Thanks.
Okay. It's on speaker view. Casey, can you make it so that everyone's face shows? Because on speaker view now, and you can just sit only Tunji in the center. So could you unpin Tunji? Hello, Casey, did you get that? So while Casey is trying to unpin Tunji so that I can see everybody and take
No,
this.
that has been done already. That has been done already.
Okay. Okay. Please put on your videos, and I am going to take the picture right about now. I didn't get everyone though. Hold on. One more time. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Please, before you leave the call, if you haven't filled our survey, please take our time to do that. We would really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Tunji, for gracing us with your presence today.
Thank you
It's
for
been
having me.
enlightening and it's been educative, and I'm sure everyone picked up something one way or the other. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming, for taking the time to be here at this moment and to join in with us. The survey is still up in the chat box. You can have access to it, and please fill them, and we'll help you in any way we can. Thank you.
Also, in addition, please, everyone, the BAF course program will be coming up pretty soon. So, of course, we'll be sending those details to you via your emails. And also, you can check out via our social media handles. It's at the BACN Connect. You can check us out there, and then you can read every details. The BACN Connect, that's the BA Community of Nigeria as well. You can check us out on LinkedIn as well. The details will be sent to you via your email. Thank you.